Welcome to the presentation of Trust and Privacy Expectations During Perilous Times of Contact Tracing. I am Habiba Farzand from the University of Glasgow, and let's start. A number of contact tracing applications were proposed as a measure to control and track the spread of COVID-19. However, low social acceptance and lack of adoption impacted the effectiveness significantly. As soon as the idea of COVID-19 applications was introduced, they made headlines. The user concerns around their use made headlines all around the world. In this paper, we specifically investigate how are contact tracing applications perceived by end users, what are the reasons behind the low adoption rates, and what is the situation around social acceptability of contact tracing applications. To answer these questions, we conducted a survey study with 80 participants, half of them belonging to France and half of them belonging to Australia. We asked questions around the general use of contact tracing, eliciting social acceptability, and around user privacy concerns. We group our results in 7 main findings, and which I will walk you through next one by one. To begin with, we first asked participants, how does a contact tracing app function? We asked this question to know about their mental models. Their answers ranged from use of Bluetooth, recording of data, issuing of alerts, and so on, implying that none of the participants actually had an idea about how a contact tracing app functions. Some of our participants were the active user of contact tracing, so we asked them what motivated them to continue to adopt to contact tracing. To which they responded that they viewed contact tracing applications as an important tool for self-protection and for controlling the transmission in worst conditions. They also viewed it as a way to return to normal life. On the contrary, a large group of participants had discontinued the use of contact tracing application, and their reasons were mainly due to privacy concerns, which is because they had issues with the government. Due to distrust, they viewed the contact tracing application as ineffective due to less users and absence of cases. The design of the application and the improper working were other reasons identified for discontinuing the use of contact tracing applications. Next, we asked them how would they behave if the use of contact tracing application is made mandatory, to which they again expressed reluctance. And they mentioned that they would actually make arrangements for use, and it more depends on what information the application collects and how the law is made. Because not everyone owns a smartphone, so the law won't be applicable to every member of the country. Some participants even mentioned that if there's going to be conditional use if there is no reduction on the free movement. Next, we asked participants if they favored the government-made contact tracing applications. A small group of participants expressed trust in government-made applications because they perceived government as a body that can offer better privacy protection, and because government already holds a lot of data, so they thought it was safer to trust the government-made contact tracing applications. However, on the contrary, a large group of participants expressed their distrust in government-made CTAs, mainly because of privacy, leading to insecurity of data, improper working, incompetent government, ineffectiveness, malfunctioning of the application, and poor UX were also mentioned as the reason that they did not trust the government-made contact tracing applications. Moving on, we collected user perceptions on the ineffectiveness of contact tracing applications. So the reasons included that users were uncertain. Others viewed it as an ineffective and inefficient manner because there are going to be limited followers of alerts, fewer users, and limited benefits of the applications were seen. On the contrary, people actually voiced that awareness around other methods such as social distancing should be more promoted than promoting technological assistance. We also collected user perceptions on the effectiveness and assistance of CTAs as perceived by a small group of participants. So they thought that it is an effective method because it helps in early self-isolation through early notification, and it provides assistance in reducing the chances of getting self-infected. It was also viewed as an effective method that reduces the spread and slows down the transmission. So data collection and privacy were the two commonly reported key terms throughout the survey. So we thought of collecting their user thoughts and concerns around data collection. So the most highlighted concern around data collection mentioned was the data deletion after the pandemic. Because there were privacy concerns linked to it, there was a possibility of misuse and mishandling of data. People actually referred to their past experiences of this, so they were more concerned when it came to data collection. Some participants also recommended having an open source code because this increases the transparency between the app developer and the user. And privacy, since privacy was repeatedly mentioned all over the question, so we asked how do the users view privacy? What does privacy mean from the user's perspective? So privacy was regarded as something important and private. It meant the protection of data, leading to no misuse of data, informed and consented data collection, and above all, and most importantly, the protection of ethical issues. Based on our results, we derived some lessons that can be helpful when seeking tech assistance for future pandemics, starting with communicating the importance and necessity in non-technical words, because this is very important because not every user is supposed to understand or have understanding about the technical terms, for example, decentralized or centralized. Next, providing evidence on the effectiveness and accuracy of the app. This is important so that the users are actually motivated to use the application. Next, setting a time frame for conditions of use of the app. For example, we can consider that we set a certain threshold that if the infection level falls under this threshold, the users can opt to stop using the application, and this would limit the use of the application. Indicating voluntary versus mandatory use with the user consent. This is important because if we force the users to continue or mandatory use it, they might go for other ways to avoid the use. For example, some of the participants mentioned that they will actually turn off the Bluetooth hijack, or they would leave their phone home whenever they go out if the government makes the application mandatory to use. Next, ensuring anonymity and confidentiality, because a leak in confidentiality actually results in disasters. This is something which is super most important to be considered. Making the application open source does not only improve the quality, but it also helps in developing transparency between the developer and the user. Incorporating a user-centered design is also necessary because many of the participants who were actually previously using the contact tracing stopped using it because there was app malfunctioning or some poor UX issues spotted. Last but not the least, determining other purposes and deletion of data. So for example, if the data needs to be preserved even after the pandemic for any other reason, for example, it's a medical researcher or so on, the data collector, the government needs to make sure that it is being clearly communicated to the users on how their data is going to be collected and used even after, if it's required, even after the pandemic is over. If you would like to know more about the results, please read our full paper. And in case of any questions, I and Mohammed are very happy to answer them in the panel discussion.